What's up, guys? Welcome to the Football Corner Podcast. I'm your host, Jeremiah Queen. Today is going to be a fun packed, energetic, newsworthy show today. Lots of things to talk about. Nathaniel Hackett, Zach Wilson, possibly the Pro Bowl, what the player picture is looking because Week 16 is wrapping up, etc. But of course, before we do all that, I would like for all my viewers out there on YouTube to go hit that subscribe button, click that notification bell so you could be up to date when new videos drop. Also, if you listen to me on a podcast app like Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, or even Spotify, go subscribe to the podcast. And as always, let's cue it up. Let's go ahead and talk about the news that broke on Monday, and that's Nathaniel Hackett being fired from the Broncos as being the head coach. And now, it's not a big of a surprise to me. I didn't think Nathaniel Hackett was doing a good job with Russell Wilson. It was reported midway through the season that he wasn't even expecting Russell Wilson to be the quarterback for the Broncos. He actually thought he was going to be up there on trade for Aaron Rodgers. Obviously, Aaron Rodgers re-sign with the Green Bay to get an extension to where he could just dump out of that contract if he wanted to. But the offense that Nathaniel Hackett was running in Green Bay is not suited for Russell Wilson. And we saw that in the first 5 weeks. Nathaniel Hackett, didn't do a good job fixing the offense to be around Russell Wilson. And it's one of those things to where I feel bad for Nathaniel Hackett because he thought one thing was happening and didn't happen for him. But also, you have to, even when you're a head coach, that's when you stop calling the plays. Get another guy, because you have an offensive coordinator, QB coach, passing game coordinator. One of those guys you could have calling the plays in order for your team to succeed. Don't just keep saying that you could do it yourself, because your offense was averaging 15.5 points a game, especially when you had a defense that are only giving up roughly 19 to 20 points a game. And that's only because of what's happened in the last few weeks of them giving up points. They just lost to the Rams on Sunday on Christmas. Russell Wilson was giving out presents in terms of interceptions. Also was Brett Rippon, the backup, when he came in. It's 4 total interceptions given up by this Broncos offense. But the Rams still scored 51 points. In the game ended up being 51-14. And Nathaniel Hackett I think that was the last straw by the ownership and GM seeing Nathaniel Hackett's play calling. You didn't want to make a change, so made a change for you. It's the first time in the last 40 years. Actually, first of all, it's the second time. Urban Meyer was fired as his first stint as head coach last year. But Urban Meyer was fired because he was kicking players. He was getting lap dances in Cincinnati. So that's the reason why Urban Meyer was fired. Nathaniel Hackett was fired because he was not adjusting. This team was built to at least compete for the Super Bowl, and y'all didn't even make the playoffs. You're going to have a top 5 pick in the draft, but you gave it to Seattle. So they gave all that draft capital and Pro Bowl caliber players because they thought they were getting a Super Bowl contender when they signed Nathaniel Hackett and when they drafted Russell Wilson. Now, Nathaniel Hackett's backstory is even a little bit more bizarre because if you actually look prior to him going to Green Bay, he got fired from Jacksonville. He started with the Buffalo Bills in 2013-14 under Doug Marrone. Doug Marrone will end up going to Jacksonville in 2016. Obviously, Nathaniel Hackett will become the offensive coordinator for the next 3 years. Doug Marrone will get the head coaching job after 1 year, and going to 2017, the Jacksonville offense will score 25 points a game, which will be a top 5 scoring offense with a top 5 scoring defense. And their defense was given the short field position in that season, and which they were able to capitalize. So it looks like their offense was doing good. I heard a lot of analysts talk about that. Well, he helped that 2017 Jacksonville Jaguars offense. No, he did not. Because in 2016 and 2018, the offense was horrible. We were scoring under 20 points a game. So it wasn't Nathaniel Hackett that was scheming up great plays. It's just that he was very opportunistic in his play calling because of what the defense was doing. So he ended up getting fired from Jacksonville. He would go to Green Bay, and where he would help Aaron Rodgers win 2 MVPs, and then he would get the head coaching job and with the Broncos. Unfortunately, it did not end the way he thought he would. He will have a 4-11 coaching record with the Broncos as his first time being a head coach Also, he'll only score 15.5 points a game, especially when your defense is only giving up 19 to 20 points a game. Nathaniel Hackett, you have to do better. You will get a head coaching job eventually. Obviously, he'll have to go back to being an offensive coordinator for a team, or if he still wants to coach. But it's one of those things that you will learn next time to make sure you get the personnel you want. You'll talk to the GM, you'll talk to ownership to make sure that you are getting a player that your system fits. Don't get a player that doesn't fit the system. The Patriots do it all the time. You see the Patriots pass on good players. I mean, really good players because it doesn't fit their scheme. Bill Belichick is like the number one coach in the league who's all about scheme. If you don't fit our scheme, we won't draft you. I mean, they literally let go Chandler Jones, and Chandler Jones will end up being an All-Pro for the Cardinals the next few seasons because he just didn't fit the scheme. Sometimes it happens. They would rather have second-team All-Pro players if it fits the scheme and win with them than first-team All-Pro players and it doesn't fit their scheme. This is what the Patriots do. Nathaniel Hackett in the future, that's what I would do. Now we could transition into the news about Zach Wilson. And I posed the question, is Zach Wilson a bust? Zach Wilson was drafted with a second overall pick in the 2021 NFL draft. I was not a believer. He's a guy from BYU. His best season was in a COVID season. They didn't have no real competition at all, especially with the quarterbacks that was in that draft. Obviously, Trevor Lawrence went number one overall, so he was already off the board. But you had Mac Jones, who just won a national championship for Alabama. You had also Justin Fields, who played Mac Jones and been going toe-to-toe with the best competition for the past 2 years in college football. But they decided to listen to the media. Somehow they were already sold on a kid who proved nothing. That's why I was so confused. The Jets made a lot of great moves under Robert Saleh, but that move, the most important move that you need in your locker room for your team, is the quarterback position. You traded Sam Darnold away, and you got somebody who's worse. Sam Darnold has been an okay quarterback. I can say that. He has not lived up to what his draft pick was when he was number 3 overall, but he has. If you look at what he's doing in Carolina, I'll talk about them later in terms of what they're doing, trying to make a playoff push. But what they have done, what he has done since leaving the Jets, and I thought he played okay for the Jets. But he had no talent around him. The talent didn't come until after Sam Darnold left, and they gave all the talent to Zach Wilson. They have a top 5 defense who only gives up 18 points a game, and Zach Wilson doesn't do anything. He doesn't do enough. He's a 55% completion percentage type of guy, a little over 4,000 career passing yards, and he's played in 22 games. Like, if you're going to play in 21 to 22 games, you should have over 4,000 passing yards. Pat Mahomes has that in 14 games easy. He's only averaging 184 passing yards a game. He has 15 touchdowns to like 18 interceptions or something like that. It's just not a good look. They compare his numbers to Jamarcus Russell, and you don't want to get compared to a guy who literally is probably one of the biggest busts at the quarterback position of all time, especially what he did to become a bust. Just wasn't reading film. He's kind of ate his way out the league, got pretty chubby, et cetera, et cetera. Zach Wilson looks like he's a bust as of now. We'll see what's happening. It's been reported that Mike White is cleared to play on Sunday, so it looks like he's going to be the starter against the Seahawks. Zach Wilson might be on another team in 2023. It's about that time in the season to where we're going into week 17, 2 more games left in the season, and if you have the teams that haven't locked up a playoff berth yet, or these 2 games matter the most. I have 10 teams, respectively from the NFC and AFC, that, in my opinion, have the best chance of actually a realistic chance of making the playoffs this season. We can start first in the AFC. We'll talk about guys who are competing for the division. In the AFC South, the 2 teams, Jacksonville Jaguars and Tennessee Titans, the winner of the Week 18 matchup, which is probably on a primetime game, is going to win the division. The Tennessee have dropped the ball really bad. They have injuries everywhere. They had to play the rookie quarterback Malik Willis against the Texans. It just didn't pan out for them like they thought. They had to play the Cowboys this Thursday. Probably lose that game, but it doesn't even matter. they're probably going to be preparing for Week 18 because that's the only game that matters for from them to be in the playoffs at all and have a home playoff game. Same for the Jacksonville Jaguars. They are on their stock is going up. I'm pretty happy about this because hometown team, big Jacksonville Jaguars fan. Their stock is going up. Trevor Lawrence is playing some of the best football over the past 7 weeks of any quarterback in the NFL. Look at his numbers compared to Pat Mahomes, Joe Burrow, Josh Allen, Jalen Hurts. He's up there, or if not better than all of them. I think he has a higher completion percentage, higher TD to interception ratio, and highest passer rating since week 7. Playing really good football. He's playing. He's actually living up to his draft stock when he was first number 1 overall in the 2021 NFL draft. Now we go transition to the other South, in the NFC South. There's only 2 teams. I know the Saints are still mathematically could win the division, but I think it's just going to be with it's either going to be the Panthers or the Bucks. Panthers or Bucks. They play this Sunday in a matchup. If the Bucks, the only way the Panthers could take the lead if they have to beat the Bucks. If the Bucks beat the Panthers this Sunday, the Bucks will host a playoff game in Tampa Bay. They're not the best team. Both teams are not good, but I think that Tampa Bay can get the job done. It'll be a hard-fought battle. I know Carolina beat them the first time, but Carolina, even though they have shown life because their division is really bad, the team's not good. They have decent running game, and Steve Wilkes is doing a heck of a job being interim head coach, and I hope he gets a chance as being a head coach in the offseason for what he has done so far, especially if they do make the playoffs, he'll be a head coaching candidate. Now we go to the teams that have no chance of winning the division but can make the wild card. You got the Giants, who are at the 6th seed in the NFC. You have the Commanders, who are 7 seeds right now. I still believe the Giants have a chance to make the playoffs at the 6th seed, just because they beat a few of the opponents that are actually in the hunt in terms of the Green Bay Packers, who are fighting, and Commanders. So they do have the tiebreaker over both those teams. And luckily, it'll be interdivisional matchups for the NFC East, which will help the Giants tremendously. Now, the Packers are very interesting. The Packers have to win out, and they need the Commanders to lose at least one game. Because the Commanders still have to play the Cowboys, I do think that's a possibility, and that Packers can get into the 7th seed. But also the Detroit Lions, who they went out, they'll have a chance at the 7th seed too. So it should be very interesting with those teams in the NFC. Now I want to transition to the AFC and teams that, like the Chargers. If the Chargers win on Monday night against the Colts, which they probably will, they'll clinch a playoff berth. So I'm pretty confident the Chargers will lock up that 6th seed. Now it goes to the Dolphins, the Jets, and the Patriots. Those 3 teams right there are battling for that 7th seed. And because it's all within the division, they control each other's fate. If the Patriots went out, they're the 7th seed. If the Miami Dolphins went out, they're the 7th seed. Now the Jets also, they have to win out and get some help from the Dolphins and losing. But the Dolphins and the Patriots are in prime position. Tua hasn't played the best football, threw 3 interceptions against the Green Bay Packers. There was just unexcusable interceptions that were made by Tua in that game. It was horrible to see Tua doing that, and he really cost his team the game. I think they probably clinched a playoff berth with doing that, just because the following week teams will lose within his division. That will help him to help that team get the playoff berth easily. But Tua has to play his best football in the final 2 weeks, and so does Mac Jones. Both those quarterbacks have a lot right on the line because both their teams have to win out in order to compete for the playoffs. Thanks for watching and listening to the Football Corner Podcast. Podcast episodes will be dropped on Mondays and Fridays, as well as YouTube videos on Mondays and Fridays. You could click the link in my description or to follow the social media links to my podcast social media pages. And also, you'll be able to stay up to date on new drops, new takes, and all that good stuff. Thanks for watching. See you next time.